Okay, so thanks a million for joining us today. We're here to talk to you about applying for our book gifting applications. This is our application information webinar. So who we are Children's Books Ireland. Our website is here. We'd highly recommend you go and check us out if you haven't already done so. I'm joined today by Becky Long, who is our Education Outreach Manager, and Becky's email address is here.
Yep.
And my name is Aoife McDonald, and I'm the book gifting manager, and my email address is also here. So, Becky, over to you. What we do.
Brilliant. So, well, we do a lot of things, folks, and as you'll see when you go onto the website, book gifting is a huge thing. And as Aoife said, she's the book gifting manager, and it really is at the heart of what we do in Children's Books Ireland, which involves getting books into the lives of children and young people, primarily through schools, which is where book gifting comes in. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on through the session. The KPMG Children's Book Ireland Awards, the ceremony is actually coming up soon. It's the 22nd of May. So exciting. So every year, a shortlist is drawn up of 10, usually about 10 books written for children and young people in Ireland that we want to celebrate the excellence of. That's essentially what the book awards do. But as part of the book awards as well, we have our junior juries program, which is where we invite schools to get involved. So next year, do keep an eye out for that, because it can be a fantastic thing to get involved in for a small class or a whole class, a whole school even. Our publications are a huge thing. So we have our Inish magazine, which is full of reviews and interviews, but we also have an amazing publications officer, Ruth Kincannon, who can be found through our website as well, who is constantly on the lookout for good books for children and young people. So our website is full of reviews as well. So our international conference is so exciting. This happens every September, and it is just full of mostly authors and illustrators who are just eager to share what they do for children and young people. But there's also a lot of sort of professional development sessions as well. And really, it's just a massive celebration of children's and young people's culture in Ireland, which is what we love to do. Book clinics. I myself started out with Children's Books Ireland many years ago as a book doctor. So what book doctors do at book clinics is we give out reading prescriptions, essentially. We talk to children and young people about books they like and sometimes books they don't like, and we make reading prescriptions about what we think they would like to read. So you could find us at festivals around the country, at maybe at libraries. Sometimes we will do sort of bespoke book clinics as well. But our program manager, Aoife Murray, another Aoife, is the one to contact about that. But book clinics are, well, I certainly have fun at them. I think everybody else does as well. And Aoife Murray is also our supporting artist person as well. So basically, what children's books, part of our remit is to support the people who create books and art and literature for children and young people. So a huge part of our remit is supporting those artists to do just that, giving them a community of practice and somewhere to talk about what they do and the challenges that they face, particularly around representation and inclusion and diversity as well. Laureate na nÓg. So on behalf of the Arts Council, we manage the Laureate na nÓg project. And Patricia Ford is our laureate this year. Some of you may have heard of the Whole Wild World Tour, which was basically 2 weeks of madness from Malin to Mizenhead, stopping at schools and libraries and bookshops along the way, all along the Wild Atlantic Way, as Trish herself is actually from Galway. So again, bringing authors and artists together, celebrating what they do best, which is creating good stories for children and young people. But the Laureate na nÓg project is an ongoing thing to keep an eye out for Trish in what she does. Research and evaluation is a huge part of what we do as well. It's not just in the wider field of children's and young people's books and literature and culture. It's also evaluating what we do, our own programs, to make sure that we're literally doing the best that we can for the children and young people that we represent. But we're also focused on finding new and innovative ways to do the things that we do and to find research that backs that up as well, because we know that books make a difference in the lives of children and young people. So it's always very gratifying to find another scholar or a critic who actually agrees with us on that. So we have a research officer as well dedicated to that. And education outreach is my area. So basically what I do is support schools within Children's Books Ireland. I support schools to to develop and sustain cultures of reading for joy, because that's essentially what we know makes the difference to well-being and to academic achievement, to all sorts of different things. So education outreach also feeds into our advocacy work. So my job is to essentially get Reading for Joy into policy, into educational policy, but also into social policy too, within the sort of the wider political system in Ireland. So everything that you guys will put, hopefully, into your applications for these book gifting programs is going to really help me tell the story of why schools need more resources and why libraries need more resources too, and why children and young people need more books. Super. So this is part of this sort of a screenshot from our website and our recommendations. There are a couple of different types of recommendations when you see them under the tab on the website. So the book reviews are Ruth Kincannon, our publications officer, constantly finding new books, new good books for children and young people, which go out to our sort of team of reviewers, and they get uploaded to the website very frequently, certainly more frequently than when I was an editor for children's books Ireland. Inish Magazine is our quarterly, yes, it is quarterly, publication sort of roundup with interviews and different things as well. So that's part of becoming a member, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on. Our reading guides are also really important. Every year we come out with a guide that essentially contains all of the best things that have been published. Formerly it was Ireland and the UK, but from this year on, we're focusing on Irish books and books produced in Ireland for children and young people, primarily to promote Irish authors and Irish artists as well. So Reading Matters is just a straight roundup of everything that was good in 2023. And basically, if it makes it into our guide, you can be guaranteed that it's good. It has passed our criteria, if that makes sense. We don't just include titles for the sake of including them. And then sometimes we have themed reading guides. So Free to Be Me is about inclusivity and diversity, lots of different ways to be, lots of different types of childhoods and experiences. And then something like Picture This focuses on picture books and graphic novels and comics. Pride is exactly what it does, exactly what it says in the tin. It's LGBTQI plus stories all gathered together. And actually, our publications officer Ruth had a happy complaint this year. She actually had too many LGBTQI plus stories to include in the guide. So that's a super development and not a problem that she would have encountered a couple of years ago. And then Bold Girls celebrates strong female protagonists across a whole sort of variety of different genres and types of fiction and nonfiction. So these are all available to download on the website, and actually the reading guides go as far back as 2006. So lots and lots of ideas there. But what Ruth has been working on recently is sort of themed reading lists. So these are much shorter than the reading guides. They're sort of short, sharp bursts and ideas for what to read. So we know that climate change and sustainability is a huge thing in the lives of children and young people, even especially in school curriculums these days as well. So Protecting Our Planet, the junior and the senior, goes from 0 right up to 18, so primary and secondary school. And they're just titles that engage with that idea of climate change and sustainability. And Book for Beginners, which I love, is just about sort of getting started on that reading journey, and books to maybe fire the imagination or just like that spark of loving reading. Inish and membership. So Inish Magazine it's a fabulous resource. It's a lovely thing to just have and to read. As you can see, the cover kind of celebrates a different Irish artist artist and illustrator every quarter, which is lovely. So like the cover itself is worth it 100%. But Inish also includes, as I say, reviews, longer in-depth articles as well from sort of leading figures in the publishing industry for children and young people as well, and across a sort of a variety of different sectors. And when you sign up to become a member of Children's Books Ireland, you basically help us to work towards that vision of every child being a reader and every child having the opportunity to engage with books and with stories that reflect their lives. And that idea of being part of a larger community as well, I think, is a really important piece, especially now when, there's so much sort of instability, shall we say, around the world. Being part of a community that really wants to do something good and focuses on books is definitely a plus in my list anyway. And also furthering our resources and the essential activities and projects that we undertake. Our members are a vital part of that, and we couldn't do it without our members. So you can get an awful lot more information about the different types of membership on the website, because you can have a sort of personal or a professional membership, and there's different kind of criteria for the two. But do give it a look, because it's well worthwhile. And now back over to Aoife for the book gifting programs.
Thanks, Becky. So our book gifting programs, so we have a few different book gifting programs running at the moment. These are kind of our core book gifting programs that we currently do award to schools. So we've Free to Be Me Little Libraries, Every Child a Reader, Robert Dunbar Memorial Libraries, and Everyone a Reader. So our Free to Be Me Little Libraries. So these are tied directly into our Free to Be Me guide, which Becky has already talked about. So in a nutshell, you can see exactly here what a school gets when they are awarded a Free to Be Me Little Library. Very important thing there is the €1,000 worth of books. Those books are coming from that Free to Be Me reading guide. And what's important to us is that every child sees themselves reflected in a book, as well as learning about the lives of others whose experiences and perspectives might be slightly different. Along with that, you do get a resource pack, which also includes activity packs, reading guides, bunting, stickers, bookmarks, all of that kind of thing. So loads and loads of lovely bits. We do have activity packs that are targeted towards primary schools. So if anybody on the call today would like one of those, please do let us know either in the chat or send me an email after this, and we'll be more than happy to send you out one. So our Every Child a Reader is for primary schools. That's a step up from a Free to Be Me Little Library. So Little Library is called a Little Library because it's 100 books. With an Every Child a Reader for primary school, it's approximately €2,500 worth of new books. So it does form a part of a larger program rather than a straightforward award. So initially, as part of this program, the school will receive a starter library of 150 books, and that's selected by people like Ruth Concannon, like Becky, and it's coming from our reading guides that are published every year. There will be a champion of reading. So that's an author illustrator who will essentially champion reading for joy in that school. And there will be about 6 visits from that champion to that school over the course of 3 to 4 months. After that, there's a second round of 100 student selected books. It's very important to us that the students do get to choose. So that's why we've created this program in this way, so that 100 books will follow up towards the end of the project, but students will have some input into the selection of those. There is always also a series of challenges that will kind of, they're not so much something to create extra work, but to create enthusiasm and further promote reading for joy and a whole school approach to reading for joy. So as part of that, we will also send in art supplies for activities. There's also a monster doodle, which is amazing. Everybody always loves the monster doodles.
So much fun.
So much fun. Then we have the Robert Dunbar Memorial Libraries. So these are named in memory of our former patron and longtime friend, Robert Dunbar. So these ones are very like Every Child a Reader. There's just slightly more books involved with the awarding of this program. Then we have Everyone a Reader, which is targeted at secondary schools. Again, it's about €2,500 worth of new books, starting with the starter library, also getting champion of reading visits, and then also having a second round of 100 student selected books after that. So to give you an idea of how our programs operate, this is our 2023 book gifting in numbers. So over 640 schools applied to Children's Books Ireland in May and June of 2022. We gifted books to 176 of those schools in 2023. That was 34,425 books reaching over 44,800 children. And of those 176 schools, we gifted libraries to 85 schools. So you can just see how we do reach a lot, but there's an awful lot more that we could reach and we would like to reach. It's all down to funding there. So the application process. Secondary school applications and primary school applications, we are receiving them separately this year for the first time. So the open call out to secondary schools is currently open and will close on Tuesday, the 4th of June. Primary school applications will open on Monday, the 27th of May. So that's Monday week, and will close on Monday, the 1st of July at 5 p.m. So what's important to note is that we do have multiple opportunities for schools to receive books as part of our book gifting programs. The ones that I've just run through are just a handful of those, and they are kind of our bigger, our core schemes. There's also more schemes that we operate, more projects that we run. One of these would be our Enterprise Road Forward program, which means that every sixth class student in your school would receive a book to keep, so a book to bring home with them. And this year we reached, I think it was over 250 schools with Enterprise Road Forward. Don't quote me on that. I need to double check that. So there is a lot of different programs and awards that come up throughout the year. It's all dependent on funding, and we could get different corporate sponsors or different funding from foundations throughout the year. And we use this application portal to choose those from. So that's how we pick which schools generally would receive these awards. So it's really, really important that you apply in this way, and then we have you on our database for that year to choose from. So we do try to match successful schools to the most suitable award as well. What I would say is when you go to fill in the application form, so for secondary schools it's open, for primary schools it will open soon. Just note the info on the landing page of the survey application form. It's important to read it. And if you have any questions at all at any stage, please do email me. So as you can see, there's 52 questions. It seems like an awful lot, but questions 1 to 42 give us essential background information on your school. So one question could be your address, one question could be your phone number. So there's an awful lot of questions that you will fill in very, very quickly. The kind of crucial part of the application process is questions 43 to 47. They give us a really good sense of the reading culture in your school. And we really want to see how your school would benefit from receiving one of our book gifting programs or awards. So we really do recommend utilizing the word count. There's word count there. So just give us as clear of a picture as you can with as much detail as you can. And just bear in mind, it doesn't always have to be about what you have done. It could also be about what you would like to do, because we're very, very aware, myself and Becky are in and out of schools. We're very, very aware that schools are really, really busy places. So we understand that it's not always possible to do everything, but even to give us a sense of what you would aspire to do and how you would go about doing it would be fantastic. Then questions 48 to 52, they're essentially outlining our terms and conditions. So these are a few questions that are really important. Question 43, what initiatives are already in place at your school to encourage reading for joy? So what we're looking for from you guys here for this is to tell us what you're currently doing. Want to hear what initiatives are in place or what you're planning or would like to put in place to promote reading for joy. Ideally, schools will have a whole school approach to embedding a culture of reading. Question 44 is, please tell us why your school would benefit from a library of books. So tell us about how you would use your library space. Would you make any changes if you could? Can you make any changes? Is it simply the fact that you just can't make any changes to what you currently have? How would it benefit your broader community in terms of spreading it out to your students' families at home? How would these new books help you further build upon the reading culture you already have in place? What does your library not have that you would really like to have in place? Tell us how you understand the importance of reading for joy. So we all understand that literacy is key. And Ireland does do really, really well in terms of literacy levels, but we're really losing that kind of sense of reading for pleasure, reading for joy, and having that whole school approach of having your drop everything and read time. And it's not becoming something else that the students have to do, but more something that they want to do. And then student testimonials. This often does get forgotten about, but it's really nice sometimes to hear from your students within your applications. So do bear that in mind. Questions 45, 46, and 47 give you a chance to identify where positive representation is needed in your school and to identify any particular areas of need and tell us about those initiatives you currently have in place. So these questions would generally really feed into when we gift our Free to Me little libraries. So Becky, over to you. I've talked enough.
So when myself and Aoife were chatting about this, we thought it would be nice to sort of give, people on the call a sense of what a successful application looks like. And not that, you have to hit every single thing that this particular answer to this question have. What initiatives are already in place in your school to encourage reading for joy or reading for pleasure or for fun, whatever you call it in your school, but to give you a sense of kind of what we're looking for. Now, this particular applicant, it suited them to literally list everything. So we have library enrichment, reading challenges, author visits, parental involvement, diverse book collection. So they almost themed everything and then gave us an explanation of what was going on in the school. So don't be intimidated by the sort of the size of this answer, if that makes sense, or by the fact that it was sort of bullet pointed or numbered. You might have a different style of answering the question. That's totally fine, but it's the information that we want. We want a sense of potentially if your school has gone through a tough time and you don't have that many reading initiatives in place now, did you have reading initiatives in place in the past? Maybe, there was a change in fortune for the school, you have staffing issues, whatever. Give us background and give us context. And what we really want to know is what you aspire to do in the future. If you had X, you could do Y. Tell us about the current facilities in the school. Does your library sit at the back of the class? Is there a space that's accessible to everyone? What are you missing? I remember one particular application from last year, and the teacher filling in the application said that the school hadn't had any new books since 2008. So that meant that, a couple of generations almost of students had lived with the same books that weren't reflecting what life was like in the classroom or even in the community, because the community itself had changed so much. But don't look at this answer and think, oh no, we don't have any reading challenges going on, or we've never had an author visit. Tell us about that as well. Talk into those gaps if you see them in the reading culture in your school, because if you recognize them, that means that you know that they're important. So we want to see both sides of the coin, if that makes sense. What you're doing, what you think you're not doing, and what you would like to do. Because that in essence is the reading culture. It's that sort of holistic approach to recognizing what you are doing, but what you would like to do as well. And parental involvement might be the easiest thing in the world for some schools. It might be far more difficult for others. But again, that feeds into what Aoife was saying about the areas of particular need. We've almost kept that deliberately, not deliberately vague, but broad enough that each individual school can actually tell us about their context and the lived realities in their community. So, if parental involvement is an issue or is something that's more difficult for you, tell us why. That all feeds into the sort of the level of the application that we receive, if that makes sense. Right, next slide, Eva. So then this is it's the same question, but this is from a different application. And as you can see here, the style of answering is completely different. This is almost like a narrative in and of itself. It's almost the story of the school's reading pleasure. So if that's what your style of answering is, that's perfect too. So like this one looks much shorter as well, and it's under, I think, the 200 word max, but it's still incredibly impactful. And this idea of, why reading for joy is important in this school, because it brings joy to the lives of students in our school and positively impacting on their imagination and creativity. Yeah, tell us what you think about reading for joy. Why is it important, as Aoife was saying? And then that sense of we as a staff. So there's that whole school approach there. It doesn't sound like it's one you're sort of, battling against the tide kind of thing. Everyone seems to be in this together. Within the classroom, students always have a book in their bag. Time is dedicated to individual students, but there's also that buddy reading as an initiative as well. So there's lots of sort of on the ground stuff that's happening there that's really impactful. And also that sense of making an effort in creating and maintaining a school library, even though, funds might be an issue, staff time might be an issue. And we know that an awful lot of schools rely on teachers and SNAs and other staff members literally volunteering to run a library, or maybe it's parents that come in to do it. So tell us all about that. Is this you or is this me, Eva?
That's me, Becky. Sorry, and I actually that was an accidental move on. I wasn't trying to finish on. Sorry. So here, another really important question, and this one is a max of 600 words. So it's kind of your biggest opportunity to really give us a sense of why your school would benefit from a library of books. And we really do want to understand the impact that the library would have on the students. So that's really important. It's the impact the library has on the students themselves. So just don't forget to talk about the students. And very simply, like we put it in the question, describe the access children would have to the collection. So tell us, how would the children access these books? Because that's important for us to know and to understand what way you go about it. It seems really simple. It might sound very straightforward to you, but you would be surprised at how many applicants kind of forget to mention that. So again, with this one, you can see it's numbered. It's really well laid out. They're kind of bringing us through a narrative, but numbering it at the same time. So you can see from this answer that the person who was writing it was really, really thinking about it holistically. And they were kind of working their way through. They were talking about what a well-stocked library will do. They talk about the impact on the students. They talk about how the library can also be a place for mental health and well-being, and just to really give the students that time and opportunity somewhere else away from the classrooms. They talk specifically about access, and they say that the children will have unrestricted availability to the library collection. And then they talk to us. They don't just say it, they tell us exactly how they will do that. They're saying how the library will allow the students to borrow the books and take them home. So they're really being very specific, pointing out that, of course, the children will be able to bring the books home. Again, that's not always considered. And then they talk about an inclusive library environment. And also then the staff. So it's bringing in that whole school approach as well. So it was such a good answer. We we were really, really impressed when we were reading these last summer. So really, really, really great answer. And then on the other hand, you will see here that we're back to a more narrative style. And with this one, straight away, its students in our school have a love of reading. So the students already have that love of reading. And this teacher talks about how this can be seen, how evident it is. They talk about the enthusiasm of the students, and how happy they were to just physically get some books into their hands. They talk about the role the library will play. They talk about the location that they're in. They talk about how they're in a rural area and it can prove difficult for students to access their local library, which is often the case. There's an awful lot of schools around the country that aren't close to a local library. So they might have a mobile library, but it might not come that often. So it's really giving us a very well-rounded view of exactly what is currently happening in that school, but also what they would like to do and what this library of books could mean to them. And then just talking about increasing access. And then just right at the end, it's just really summing up exactly how much this program would mean to them. So I'll hand back over to you, Becky.
And also, just in case anybody is sitting on the call sort of panicking, thinking, we don't do any of this in our school, or, we're not at this level, like, don't think of it in those terms, because really and truly it is about that sort of aspirational part as well, like recognizing the need to make sure that the students in your school have access to books. And if that's not the case now, the fact that you're here on the call means that you want to change that. So that's really important as well. It's not a case that we expect schools, like I say, to be at a certain level when they apply. That's not the case at all. It's an individual assessment of each application, because we know that schools are coming from so many different contexts and different sort of situations and lived realities as well. And again, that's exactly what this question is about: your school's areas of need. And it doesn't just say area, it says areas of need. So why would a selection of books featuring diverse characters be of a particular benefit to your school? And that could mean that potentially you have had new students joining in the form of Ukrainian refugee students. You might have a lot of students from diverse cultural backgrounds, and the books in your class and in your school just might not reflect the actual class. That children need to see themselves in the books that they're reading, but they also need to be able to learn about other types of childhoods, different diverse childhoods. So it's that sense of being able to look in the mirror, but also being able to look through a window, and that's what books offer us as well. So again, that second line here: by reading about characters from different walks of life, students gain a broader perspective and develop empathy. And that's huge. That empathy piece is massive, and it feeds into not just, sort of in, your own personal character building and, sort of figuring out who you are, but also in that communication. And again, as Eva was saying, literacy piece, that you can actually understand that there are different ways to be in the world and different contexts in which to grow up and in which to become who you are, essentially. And again, that idea of the selection of books featuring diverse characters can serve as a platform for important discussions and conversations. And this links back to that previous answer about sort of the more stories you have, the better able you are to dig into the curriculum and potentially into the gaps in the curriculum that you have found by working with your students. So by starting those conversations, you can actually have a huge impact on the way in which your students see the world and are being in the world as well, if that makes sense. So the library can be absolutely that center and focus of Reading for Joy, but it can also just sort of infuse every aspect of school life. And again, because whole school approach. So, I was chatting to a school librarian recently, and she put it in such a wonderful way. It's that, the school library feeds into every subject. It's not just about having that sort of creativity and imagination. It's about, being enthusiastic about science because you read a really cool nonfiction science book as well. So it permeates into everything. And so, it shouldn't just be the job of one teacher to champion that sense of Reading for Joy. It should be right throughout the school, and the library should be the focus of that, but should have a presence everywhere, both in the lives of the students and in the curriculum as well. And again, I love this in conclusion because they've just written an essay, which is wonderful. Would greatly benefit the school by promoting inclusivity, empathy, cultural understanding, and academic growth. That's it in a nutshell. And however that looks in your school is how we want to see it in your application. Next slide, please, Eva.
I just say as well, I love the last line there.
It's just super.
Yeah.
Empathy, respect, that's really what it's all about. Is this you or me, Eva?
That's you.
This is me again. Yeah, and again, it's that sense of that looks like a much shorter answer than the previous one, but it's still hugely impactful. And even I'm just going to dive straight into the middle of it. Students in our school come from a range of backgrounds, differing in socioeconomic status, family type, and ethnicity. So it is that sense of the whole school community. But actually, the whole school community is made up of multiple different communities that have been brought together in the most wonderful way by the children and young people that represent them, that make up the school community. And of course, the school community is comprised of families, different types of families, different types of backgrounds, different types of communities. And that sort of that idea of belonging as well really does take root almost in a library that is inclusive and representative and impactful in that way, offering different types of stories to the children that need them the most. So even here, we strive to ensure that all students in our school feel valued and accepted. At the beginning of the school year, we bought a variety of dual language books for students in our school who speak home languages other than English or Irish. And, that's incredibly important as well, because you want students to be able to hold all of the facets of their identity when they're in school. And why should a library not reflect that? In fact, that's absolutely what it should do. So, again, that idea of books acting as mirrors and windows, and that's what students need. So it's, if you look at this question almost as your little manifesto, your almost campaign manifesto for why your school should succeed in the application, I think that might help people frame how they answer the question. It's about your school. It's about what your school needs. So, you're putting your needs as a school community first and foremost. It is literally about you, if that makes sense. This is the time to stand up and say, we do great things, but we could do more great things if we had X, Y, and Z, and this is why.
Thank you, Becky. So that's essentially it from us in terms of our talking. We have a short video here to play for you that shows our book gifting programs in action. And then after that, we will take some questions. So it's about 4 minutes long.
My mind and imagination. When I read, I feel like I'm in a whole different world and no one can bother me. My favorite thing about reading is the character stories, and sometimes I can relate to them, and every character story is different. I like books because my brother always reads them for me at the night.
want to inspire a love of reading in you guys. Who loves reading?
My favorite thing about reading is that it helps my imagination grow. When I'm reading, I just block out all the noise that other people are making and feel like I'm in my own world.
Students here in St. Mary's were really, really excited to receive the new books. They were beautifully illustrated and they really enjoyed reading them. Everybody in the school was thrilled to have them.
I love the books. It's nice, interesting book. This is my favorite book and it's called Cloud Babies. I like this book because it's about a little girl who goes through some hard times, but she always keeps a smile on her face and she gets through it, and it's just really nice to me.
I also liked how we didn't just have to get a book randomly picked out for us. I liked how we could just pick the books on our own and pick whichever one we would really like to read.
We have a very diverse background in the school here. So I think, you know, as a teacher, I probably wouldn't be able to decide the best books for them. So why not give it that ownership to the children? And I think they flourished from that. They were able to tell what the library would look like with their own books in it and not something that I picked for them. So they really, really enjoyed that part of it.
I was really happy when I saw that there was a good few books that I picked out, and one of my friends were reading one of the books I picked out, and I was really happy, and I can't wait to see all the other books. I love books with lots of pictures. I like books with more words because it gives more fun time to read, and you can imagine the characters in your head. I personally prefer both, but if I had to pick one, I would probably prefer a book with lots of pictures, like a comic book, because I really like those comic book type of books. The bookish challenges we did were, one of them was reading in unusual places, and I read with my chickens. I don't know, my chickens were very, very confused. I loved the challenges, and I read my book in my little sister's buggy.
And I read inside my sister's cot.
I read in my dog's bed with my dog.
A highlight here, without doubt, was the Monster Doodle. I really enjoyed it because we'd have a lot of, obviously here as teachers in St. Mary's, we're trying to promote reading, writing and artwork. And the Monster Doodle brought those three parts together. And particularly, you know, the characters in the story came to life when they collaborated doing the Monster Doodle. So they really, really enjoyed that. And we found as teachers that they were able to write really interesting stories as a result of it, as well as enjoying the books that were associated with it. So it was a fabulous project, and they really enjoyed doing it.
We did the Monster Doodle down in our common area. We had a long sheet of paper rolled out, and we each drew our own monsters, and I drew a green hairy one with one big eye.
We would encourage all schools throughout Ireland to look for the funding that's available so that they can get these fabulous books in their school libraries as we have here, and we're really enjoying them.
Thank you to Children's Books Ireland. Thank you for the new books. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all the books, and it's a really great help to the school.
But at the end of that always gets me.
Oh, stop. I love it so much.
So that's it for myself and Becky. Have we any questions? I had a few in the chat. But yeah, if anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask us a question, please do. Or even type it into the chat.
Yeah, 100%. And again, if you come up with something that just, you know, hits you like an hour after the session ends, just give myself, Rifa, an email, and we'll get back to you. And like I say, just the major thing, I think, having read so many applications last year and looking forward to the applications coming in this year, please do not think that your school is not doing enough in order to apply. Don't come at it with that mindset at all. Just, I really think that the applications are a chance for you as schools to celebrate what you're doing already and to have recognition for that as well. And it was something that I wanted to mention too. If anyone is thinking of going for the Well-Read Award, essentially what our application is almost like a a text version of the portfolio that you would be putting together for the Well-Read Award. So, you know, it's almost like doing two jobs at once, if that makes sense. And, you know, there's a huge amount of overlap, particularly in that Reading for Joy piece and that culture of reading in the school between us and the Well-Read Award. And we will be partnering with them going forward from September for the new round when it opens. So, you know, if you see similarities there, that's because they exist. And really what we want to promote and what we want you to think about in terms of a whole school is very much in line with the Well-Read Awards as well. So just to flag that with everyone too.
Okay, so just one last chance if anybody has any questions for us. But as Becky said, we have our email addresses. So please do let us know afterwards if you had a question. Okay.
Leaf, I can't believe we were actually on time.
I know, yeah. Yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute to go. Thanks everybody for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time. And have lovely evenings. Hope the sun is out where you are now.
It's just started here now, so yeah, nice timing.
Bye guys. Thank you.